I've been on Facebook ads since about 2011. 2015, we took an e-com store from 800K to 26 million in 18 months. That caught Facebook's attention, and working quite closely with Facebook execs in Ireland at their head office as well. Here, I got invited out to Menlo Park back in 2015. Wow. I asked the engineer, I said, like, when the pixel is on the website, what's behind the data? How does it figure out like all this stuff? The core of it, and the simplest way to understand Andromeda's update is Facebook is saying, hey, we've got a ton of data on our users. Trust us with finding the right person for you. In exchange, give us enough creative, enough angles, enough variety, and a landing page or funnel that is self-explanatory, and we'll do the rest. This whole thing about avatars, and you talk about the research you do online and what people are talking about. Some people use Amazon, some use Reddit, whatever it is. Yeah. That is like 80% of your success will lie there. 20% is all the config, the ad sets, metrics, and things like that. And that's where that methodology came out from.
If you've been anywhere near the world of meta ads, and you've already heard the name Deepesh Mandalia. He's one of the most respected performance marketers in the game, running ads since 2011, scaling brands from hundreds of thousands to tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and even getting invited to Meta's headquarters in Menlo Park to work directly with the engineers who are building the algorithm every single day. This is somebody who manages millions per month in advertising spend across e-commerce, info products, SaaS, and even local businesses. And he's distilled all of that experience into frameworks which we're going to be covering in this video. But not only that, you see, I've been getting messages every single day from people telling me that their ads have completely stopped working since the Andromeda update. So I saw this as an absolute emergency to get Deepesh on the channel to go deep into exactly what is working with Andromeda and exactly how you can apply this to your campaigns. So in this conversation, we go deep into what's actually working right now, why most advertisers are getting it wrong, and how you can leverage the algorithm the way it was intended to be leveraged. But not only what works in general, but what works specifically for local business lead generation. I asked Deepesh all the questions that you want to know, such as, what is the best testing strategy for Andromeda? What creatives work best for local business lead generation? How do we effectively test creatives without overspending on ads that are underperforming? What's the best way to improve lead quality? Should we be using lead forms or landing pages? And much, much more. I'm going to go as far as to say I think this might be the most important video that you watch when it comes to meta advertising. So sit tight, grab a refreshment of your choice, get a pen and paper ready, and let's get straight into it. However, you're probably thinking, Sam, there's an insane amount of value to give away for free. Well, I've got bad news. It's in fact not free. It costs just one thing, and that is a subscribe from you. If you enjoy this video and you're getting a ton of value, all I ask is that you hit the subscribe button in return. It's completely free, it takes you less than 1 second, and if you're feeling extra nice, go ahead and like the video as well. Okay, let's get straight into it. We're gonna go into Andromeda because I obviously recently did a video about it. Most of my audience, we do mostly lead generation, but a lot of people will advertise their own products, whether that's like agency services, maybe there's people watching this selling info products, I don't know. Mostly lead generation, kind of your standard brick and mortar style businesses, right? Nothing too complex. It's slightly different. So I kind of interested in hearing your perspective on how that differs to if you're, for example, running a big national $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 a day campaign. I'm kind of interested to know how you would adjust your strategies compared to those kind of products. Yeah. But first question I have for you is, obviously you've been doing this for over a decade, right? Do you think that Facebook ads compared to 2015, what's changed? Obviously lots have changed, but do you think that it's still as easy as it was then? Or was the kind of pipe dream that everything was easier back then? Is that true, or is it just different?
I think it's different because, like, if I go back to 2014, when I started working with this e-com startup that was doing 800K, we struggled for a time. And I think it was a different kind of struggle to what it is now. It wasn't so much algorithms and stuff like that. I came from a paid search world. So I'd spent like since 2006, 2007 working on paid search. So when I started working with Facebook, the idea was, let's just run ads, look at click-through rate, and just try and get as many clicks as possible. And I think that was my early mistake. So back in 2014, 2015, when we cracked it, I realized that it wasn't a game of clicks, it was a game of influence. And the thing that I talked to people back then was, Facebook ads is more like TV advertising than Google search. Like, this is kind of talking about 2014, 2015, in the sense that no one's on Facebook to buy something, but people are buying things. It's the same as TV ads. No one's on, watching their show, whatever it is, Emodal or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can get them to buy, you can influence them. So then I started to look at those principles differently in the sense of, all right, I don't just want your click, I want the right clicks.
Mm.
And I want to convince you that the thing that we've got is worth your time and money, essentially. So for me, that was a big change back then. That principle absolutely still applies. I think what's happened is because there's more competition, because the algorithm's getting smarter and stuff, you have to work harder at that. Now, I think back then you could kind of get away with not being as good with your advertising because there weren't as many advertisers. There were a lot, those competition was still high, but the noise wasn't as bad as it is now. So if you take the coaching space, for example, take any niche, pretty much oversaturated. So you really have to find ways to stand out. Take e-com, trust has like decayed. There's so many fraudulent stores and stuff like that. Take brick and mortar, again, like reviews matter. Reputation matters. How do you get that across on Facebook? It's easier on Google. You've got the star ratings, you've got local ads and stuff like that. So I think the challenge is different. It's kind of more multifaceted than it was back, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also we have access to tools that we didn't have then. So although it's got more complex, the algorithms are a lot stronger. Back in the day where you would do a heavy amount of interest and exclusion based targeting, and you would get creative with, you could target a subsector of audience based upon what you included and what you excluded in terms of interests, right? Half of those, if not more, have gone now. And I very rarely do I even touch interests at all. So it's definitely changed. And it's obviously, in my opinion, it's a lot more geared towards the hooks that you're using, the copy that you're using in terms of the type of user that you're going to attract. And it's a lot better. So I'd say and also we've got access to so many cool AI tools now, which is obviously increased how competitive the industry is, but it's made it a lot more interesting. So let's get into Andromeda. So you've obviously got a huge amount of experience with e-commerce, lead generation. I actually remember back in the day, I paid you for some consulting around lead gen, and you helped me with that. And a lot of the stuff you taught me then, interestingly, you probably don't remember. I still do a lot of it now indirectly.
Cool.
But you obviously have experience in all these industries. And we mentioned brick and mortar. I'd imagine 80-90% of people watching this are going to be either selling brick and mortar or they're going to be using ads to generate leads for their agency or marketing business or something along those lines, right? So if we look into, for example, the Andromeda update, we'll get into specific questions. What's the biggest change, would you say, to a media buyer versus before the Andromeda update? Like what's the top sort of 3-4 things that they should know in terms of how the algorithm has changed?
So one thing, I don't know if you remember, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Facebook came up with this model where it was like the top 5 things you need to do. They had a term for it. I can't remember what it was. It's still the same principle that they were pushing back then, which is things like simplification of your campaign, giving enough data, having enough creative diversity, something about the funnels and tracking and things like that. So their kind of big thing back there was, and it kind of really took off. I think it was pre-iOS 14 or after.
Yeah.
And their thing was like focus on these 5 things and you'll have big success. And it was true. Like they are the main 5 things. That's kind of
the Power 5, just in short.
the power 5. That's exactly it. Yeah. So that is still in effect now. So nothing's changed. What they've done with the Andromeda is added more machine intelligence. I'm not going to call it AI because it's not really AI, it's machine intelligence. And I can explain the difference. But the key thing there is Andromeda is trying to now programmatically reward you and force you into using those Power 5 elements as well. So the core of it and the simplest way to understand Andromeda's update is Facebook is saying, hey, we've got a ton of data on our users. Trust us with finding the right person for you. In exchange, give us enough creative, enough angles, enough variety, and a landing page or funnel that is self-explanatory, and we'll do the rest. So in its simplest form, what Facebook would love for you to do, and I actually sometimes still do this for local ads, is like one campaign, maybe one or more ad sets, but then you don't separate, your top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel. So you're not doing like a cold and hot split and retargeting. You're doing everything in one ad set. So like go back to, I think it was through COVID, we had a client that was selling like virtual reality experiences. Like you could go there, book an hour and just do the virtual reality. And we literally just did that. So it was local targeting. It was actually here in Canada, a place called Red Deer. So what we did was one campaign. We had one ad set, which was just targeting a radius around that town. And I think it was 18 to 40, like age range. That was it. Then within that, we had ads that were targeting a cold audience, we had ads that were, reviews and video reviews and stuff like that, all in one ad set. So within that ad set, there's probably about 6 or 7 ads running, and we were doing maybe $200 a day ad spend, and we had consistently good results. There was no retargeting, there was no separate, top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel. We just let Facebook do its thing. Now, this was way back in 2020, whenever COVID was. That worked.
Yeah.
That same principle works now, except Andromeda is far more intelligent now than it was when the algorithm was 5 years ago. So the simplest thing from a local perspective is keep things simple, don't over segment, and don't over target. Like I've seen for, like, you mentioned interest, for example. When it comes to local, interest can work, but the thing is, the more you layer in your targeting, the more you're restricting the algorithm. And what Meta's saying is, you kind of need to trust us. Now, where does the trust come from? I spoke to a Facebook engineer. I got invited out to Menlo Park back in 2015. Wow. And I asked the engineer, I said, like, when the pixel is on the website, like, what's behind the data? How does it figure out, like, all this stuff? They said per user, there's about 1 million data points. 1 million data points per person. So when you go onto Facebook, it knows so much about you, and it knows so much about you off of Facebook. And here's the key thing that he told me was, every website you visit, there's a pixel on most websites, right? Everyone's, running Facebook ads. So it's collecting data about you everywhere you go. So it's not just like looking at, when you log into Facebook, all the things you interact with and interests you have within Facebook. It's also looking outside. So you may have seen it, for example, and I had this recently as well. I was looking for something related to my garage. So I think the mechanism or some kind of lock thing to make the door come up and down had broken. So I started to Google search it, and guess what? I started to get local ads for garage installers on Facebook.
Is that because the pixels, obviously you're landing on a site with a pixel that's feeding that data back to Facebook, which you're logged in on the same device, and therefore it understands that information about you. So it's not just what they're clicking on the platform, it's what they're doing on any pixelated site effectively.
And the thing is, I looked at these sites, I had not visited them. So it wasn't as if it was a retargeting ad.
No.
And what I believe is happening is Facebook looks at the context of the user. So they look at recency and frequency. So if anyone listening has done email marketing, recency, frequency, and monetization are the 3 main things you work on when it comes to email. So how recent has someone opened? How frequently do they open? How much money have they spent with you? When you start segmenting based on that, you're going to be really successful in email. Same applies with Meta. Meta looks at how recently you've done something, how frequently you're doing, because I was searching all these things, so it can kind of pick up what I'm doing, and it looks at my monetary value. Has this person interacted with Facebook before? How much have they, when I click the shop now button, how much have I spent, or how much have I checked out? So it puts all of those things together. Now, let's say you are a local advertiser doing garage installs and repairs, and you've gone broad. And you're looking at that and saying, okay, I'm targeting this city, I'm targeting this age range. How's Meta going to know who needs garage installation? Well, that's exactly how they know, because someone's actually on Google and visiting all these sites. So it's picking all that together. So when you look at local ads, you might think, well, how do I find an interest of someone who's interested in garage repairs? It seems impossible. It's not. That's what Andromeda's doing. It can find those people based on all these signals. Now, how can you also help that? One of the things I think probably, I'm going to say most people don't know and are not aware of, is when the pixel fires on your website, it's sending all the text from your website back to Meta. Meta's using that text to understand who your avatar is. So let's say, for example, like I've seen landing pages which don't really use keywords. Let's just say like keywords that are important to your business. So let's say, for example, you're a garage installer. If you say, we fix garages, or, it's kind of broad, then Meta might not exactly know who you're after. But if you say, we're the top garage installer in this city, and, we've installed garages since 2015, it's like search engine optimization. You want all the keywords and stuff to be there.
And is that in your content copy or all everywhere? In the videos, the copy, the headlines are all over it?
I'd say think of it like search engine optimization. If you want to rank for Google, Facebook will take that same information and help you rank essentially in the meta ads. So
that's so interesting.
For example, when you're working on SEO, you want your H1, your heading 1 in the HTML to be optimized, your heading 2, you want your text, any images, you use the alt text to describe, because that's again what SEO picks up. If you do all of those things, especially for local businesses, for your website, and run broad, you're giving Facebook all the hints it needs to know who your avatar is. So like, they're things that people don't really know or think about when it comes to how Facebook work. So like, I can go into more detail on Andromeda, but the easiest thing to understand is trust in the algorithm as long as you give it the right things. Now, I've talked about off-site. things, so your website and things like that. What can you give it inside of Facebook? So when you create your ad set, what Meta wants is a variety of ads that will target different types of people within your audience. So, for example, if you have 2 or 3 different avatars, I don't know what, they might have someone who's younger, someone who's older, someone who's whatever it is. You want a range of those ads in that same ad set. What Meta's now started to do is to identify avatars within its own system, and it's then targeting the right ad for that avatar as well. And I think
as opposed to before, you would have, for example, an ad set you would have considered like the brain, and therefore you wouldn't want to necessarily confuse that by having multiple different call outs, hooks, or demographics. Now you can effectively combine those together into one ad set and it will figure out independently inside of that ad set. I know what people are going to be asking. If I was to say this, I know exactly what they would say to me. Okay, let's take up, we've onboarded a client in the US. They have a franchise. They've got 120 locations, an osteoporosis clinic. So they've got kind of a few different demographics. The main demographic is people who are already diagnosed with osteoporosis. Okay, that's probably a third to a half of the potential customer base, right?
Yeah.
The rest, and obviously within that demographic, you've got lots of different pain points that they would resonate with, of course. But outside of that, you've got lots of sort of triggers or call outs, hooks, pain points, whatever you want to call, that would effectively appeal to potential customers who don't know they've got osteoporosis. And so therefore we can they're kind of more top of funnel, right? Now, obviously the way we would do that, and in a minute I'll share my screen and show kind of my process and how we do it. But we tend to obviously scrape customer data to find these pain points, and then we build creatives around those individual pain points, right? And obviously each ad will have similarities. So there'll be product benefits, there'll be offers, stuff like that. But in terms of the core of what we're speaking about, it will be specific to that particular pain point, right? Now, let's say, for example, I've gone through this process. I've created 5 different pain points, 2 or 3 different hooks for each. I've got a whole batch of creatives, right? So and then I've also got us versus them, kind of lower down the funnel style call outs, things like this. If I put all those into one ad set, let's say I've got a CBO campaign with one ad set, got 10, 15 ad creatives in there, $100 a day budget, right? Something like that. What happens when you launch it? It's relatively new product, which you might know a bit about the industry, but you haven't necessarily run that before. All your budget goes towards one ad. What's the next step? Are we saying Facebook knows what it's doing, let's let it ride? Or are we intervening? And at what stage do we intervene at this? Because now we've got less control, right? As opposed to before where we might ad set split test, we've got less control. When do we intervene with that?
So one thing I'd say is you've hit one of the biggest problems on the head, and it's one of the reasons why I don't roll out Andromeda everywhere. My process is, and I don't know if you follow this process, I have different ad sets, different campaigns for different testing phases. So I start off with testing audiences first. It depends on what kind of audience there is. Like if
this is for more bigger national type campaigns we've got.
Yeah, for if it's even some of the local campaigns, I might do some audience testing. But I always have a different campaign for creative testing because I want to know what's working with the audience before I put it into the main ad campaign. So in this instance, if I am going to go down the route of one campaign, one ad set, and multiple hooks, angles, and avatars, I'm pre-testing that first. I'm not letting Facebook do that testing because it will end up with the situation you said, either of ads being, with overspend, or you're kind of doing your testing on the fly with your main ad set. So I don't like to do that. So there's a very simplest level. I would start off exactly as you've said. There's an ad set for each avatar, and within each avatar, I'm doing my angles and my testing and stuff there. Because the thing is, I want to know what offers are working for the avatar, what message is working, what creative and stuff like that. Then I'm more comfortable putting it into more of an Andromeda style setup.
Okay, that's what I normally do.
That saves money and time as well. Yeah.
So for example, let me show you. So for example, I'll share my screen. We've got here can you see this spreadsheet? See a Google sheet? You can see it, just checking. So for example, we've done a bunch of research. We scrape reviews. We use AI to assist. We don't use it to do everything. And we come up with, for example, in our core pain points, each pain point might have 5 different hooks that we could, gives us, we might start with one, but it just gives us multiple variants for future, right? Once, because ultimately fatiguing, we need more stuff. We have them at the ready, like once we've proven that they work. And then we have our scripts, primary text, all that kind of stuff. So let's say, for example, for each one of these, I might have top 3 pain points. That might be, for example, 3 different demographics effectively, right? Or like avatars, as you say, right? And for each one, I might have a script for each, and I might have 3 formats. One might be talking head, one might be UGC, one might be static or text-based, right? What's the first stage? Would your stage be to, let's say, take the 3 ads for each of those categories and have 3 independent ad sets on an ABO first, let it spend $30, $40 per day on each, until we figured out, for example, first which demographic is most effective, and then obviously within each demographic, which ad creative is most effective. How long would you let that run for? And at what stage would you then move it into a CBO campaign? And would you have that CBO campaign already running, or would you introduce that, let's say, a week or 2 weeks later?
Yeah, so the first part of the question, exactly as you've said, I would be splitting them out and doing the testing at the ad set level using ad set budgets. The way I do testing, though, is not based on spend, it's based on impressions. So when I, again, spoke to the engineer about how the algorithm knows if an ad's going to work or not, one of the things they said is in their system, once an ad has reached 1,000 people, they're pretty confident whether the ad's going to work or not. Now, you may have seen it where some ads absolutely fly out of the blocks and then they start to decline. What Facebook sometimes does is, in order to test the quality of the ad, they'll give you the best audience for the first 500 to 1,000 people or reach, just to see how the ad performs. And then it's trying to determine whether you're a quality advertiser and it's a good ad, good offer, and things like that. So that's why I like to test by impressions. So I basically do it 1,000 impressions per click in your funnel. So let's say e-commerce, for example, you click an ad, you go to the product page, add to cart, all those kind of things. By the end of it, it's like 5 or 6 clicks. So I need to test 6,000 impressions. For local ad, it might be click, landing page, opt-in. So it's like 2,000 or 3,000 impressions. So that's per ad. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Because what you're doing here is Facebook can tell within 1,000, but we don't have access to their insights and tools and things like that. For me, from experience, you need a bit more impressions than what Facebook would say. So this is just a general good rule of thumb to say 1,000 per click. Within that, let's say 3,000 impressions for this local opt-in ad, I want to know what the click-through rate is, CPM and CPC. So they're all the stats on the Facebook side, but I'm also learning what the opt-in rate is. And are people actually interested in, going beyond the landing page and actually opting in? Within the 3,000 impressions for an offer like that, I would expect some opt-ins to come in. Then tells me that this offer is resonating. That determines success. So, and the reason not to use spend is because let's say an ad has a £50 CPM. I had to think about the currency because I'm always talking dollars. So if one ad has £50 CPM, that means you have to spend £50 to get 1,000 impressions. If another ad has £100 CPM, you're going to spend £100 to get 1,000 impressions. If you're only spending £50 per ad, that more expensive ad is going to get under-serviced. It won't get enough impressions.
Does CPM have a correlation towards quality of ad and likely outcome or not?
It does, yeah, absolutely does.
So if you've got an ad out the gate, red hot CPM, $100, $200, whatever, is that an indication that ad is performing poorly? Or is that an indication that ad is tapping into a more expensive subsector of your audience? And
both.
Right, how do you know the difference?
So what I do is if let's say I've launched 5 ads, I'm looking at what the average is. So if the average CPM on an ad say is $25 and one of them is like $75, I know it's probably the ad and there's something specific about that. Sometimes, like there's so many triggers for high CPMs, sometimes it's using a keyword that is maybe a gray area in terms of ad policy or something like that.
Okay.
So they can spike a CPM. It could also be that it just got dropped into an auction where there's higher competition than the other ads. So you just had your costs knocked up. It could be that, for example, when you launch an image and there's too much text, sometimes Meta will penalize you for that. It's like there's so many reasons for having the high CPM. If all of the ads are high, let's say we just launched all these 5 ads and all of them are like $75 and we're expecting it to be lower, then it's probably the ad set. Maybe there's something there that the audience is too small. We've configured a pixel event that maybe it's, not optimized. So like it's hard to tell someone who hasn't got experience of how to find these things. Yeah. But it's kind of, there are clues as to where to look, I think.
And you mentioned, for example, like the blend of having your kind of cold, warm, hot audience, or also creative types kind of blended together, right? So if we take an example of a local business, the way I tend to explain it is you've got product benefits and you've got company benefits, right? A more top of funnel would be more of a product benefit. If we take, for example, I don't know, the osteo clinic, for example, it would be, that it's a 10-minute workout a week and it reduces pain, it increases bone density. That's a product-based benefit, and that's more top of funnel, middle of funnel, suitable ad style. Company benefit would be, for example, 1,000 reviews, pain-free guarantee or your money back, things like this, right? So we tend to obviously use those throughout the funnel at different stages. In your testing process that you mentioned, are you primarily testing your cold top of funnel ads and performance? And then you would add those kind of more bottom of funnel, us versus them, company-based benefits later stage when you introduce those into your, when you kind of consolidate everything together? Or would you be testing those at the same time?
No, it's the former. So like most of your traffic's going to hit those top of funnel ads. So the way I kind of term it in the avatar is the kind of emotional benefits and also the
Yes.
rational benefits. So
Okay, that's a
like the
good way of explaining it. Yeah.
yeah, because the emotional benefits are the things that are going to move me to make a decision. So if you're talking, and one thing I talk about top of funnel is painkiller versus supplement. Now, if you've got a really banging headache, you've had migraine all day, and you see an ad that says, hey, this 3-month program can fix your migraine, not interested at all. Like, I've got an immediate pain right now, I need a solution. If it's a painkiller that says, give us $20 and, this video series will instantly fix your migraine, you're going to sell that all day long.
Yeah.
Flip that around, and let's just say someone's got chronic migraine. They've had it for years, and you're like, well, we can fix that in 90 days. Then someone's going to listen. So I think a lot of it is like where, especially in the osteo space, like where is your prospect in that journey? Are they in immediate pain and they need it fixed ASAP? People are not going to pay high ticket. They're not going to go for a long-term program or anything like that. This is where often with local, the foot in the door offers work really well because yes, like for example, Botox clinics, you're going to sell them tens of thousands ultimately. But if you come in and say, we're going to give you this free assessment or we're going to give you this low cost tester or whatever it is, you're getting them in to solve an immediate need, which is like for women, for example, I just want my top lip Botox. Now, if you've got a great offer and you're reputable and stuff, and you can just get them in for that, you're going to sell them into other things once you're there. So you're not saying, hey, we can do this whole program for you. So again, like the top of funnel ads are focused on where they are. Are you looking for a pain or a solution, or are you looking for like a long-term remedy? Then we work on what the emotions are. So why do you want your osteo problem fixed? It's the lifestyle. It's the ability to do things. Like if you're an older person, spending time with your grandchildren. If you're a parent, it's being active with your children. So you're kind of tapping into those emotions, which then bring people into your ad and into your funnel. And then the rational reasons are just the closing techniques. So, trusted by X number of people, all these stars, all the things that you know as well. Those generally don't, from my experience, they don't really need that much testing. They're just facts. Like you can't really manipulate facts. They're there. What you can manipulate, and I say manipulate because a lot of the marketing we do is manipulation. You can manipulate the hooks and the angles and the feelings and the stories and things like that.
100%. No, I completely agree. So like I always find explaining this in with things like healthcare, chiropractic, fitness, they're easier, right? For example, a bathroom renovation company, right? Their core product is basically their only product, which is, I don't know, let's say a $10,000 to $20,000 bathroom renovation. How do you apply that same logic to something like that where there isn't really a low ticket option or a foot in the door option available? Do you create one? Do you ignore that entirely? Try something different? Like how would you apply it to that kind of product?
Yeah, I think like, I've worked in those kind of niches as well. One of those things is understanding, again, what kind of pain is the person experiencing? Now, for example, if you're about to sell your house, you could talk to them in the way that this could add 50K extra value to your house, if that's the kind of thing. Or if it's a family and they're outgrowing their house and they need something extended or something improved, it's cheaper to stay in your house and renovate or extend than it is to buy a new property. So like I'm trying to understand like where are they in their kind of journey, in their life stage. That helps me to determine the message first of all. Then I think like it's very hard obviously to sell those kind of things off the bat. What I would be looking at is either some kind of free advice lead magnet kind of thing, or a free call opportunity. For example, we've done one where you can get like a draft assessment done via a Zoom call or Skype back in the day, that kind of thing. But something that you can build trust very quickly with, because this is the biggest thing. There are so many, like especially with home renovation stuff, there's so many people you can choose from. Most, like myself, would go through referrals. So I'd ask my neighbor, I'd ask my friend and say like, can you recommend someone? That's obviously the easiest path to go. If I see an ad, it's kind of like, I don't know anything about you. So like, I'm going to struggle to understand whether I'm going to be able to take your service or not. Home improvement services, if you do door to door, kind of often more successful than Facebook ads. So sometimes it's a case of, are we using the right medium? If we believe Facebook ads can work, then we need some way of building trust. How do we get that foot in the door virtually? It's kind of just like people love brochures. People love to look at things like eye candy. People love watching renovation shows on TV. Like, how do you replicate that online? Maybe rather than saying, book us to do your bathroom renovation, you just share a video, 5-10 minute edutainment video on actually a bathroom renovation. If you're interested in that, you're going to watch that and you'll be like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so obviously a couple of questions I've got off the back of that. So for example, things such as like a free design. The first question someone might have is like, yes, I think I need a new bathroom, but I'm not really sure what style I want. You can solve that problem with a free 3D mock-up, CAD drawing, design, whatever, valued at X amount for free for homeowners in so-and-so area, right? Yeah. So it's and this all kind of stems back into like the kind of lead quality issues that a lot of people face with Facebook. I think it's fair to say that Facebook leads on average are worse quality than, let's say, PPC or search-based organic SEO. They're of course hard to come by, more expensive. Facebook's easier potentially, and therefore the quality, I suppose it's still the same users on the platforms, right? So they are available and they are there. Is it a case of we need to get higher quality leads? We need, because a lot of people will think, oh, I need to add more steps into my funnel, or I need to add more friction, or is it more a case of that actually your creatives, your hooks are attracting the wrong type of user, and therefore we need to look at that first and remove, for example, maybe financial incentives and instead opt for more, like you mentioned, painkiller versus supplement style. Hey, you've got a problem, we can help you fix it. Here's our credentials. Here's a foot in the door offer to help you with that. Is that the right thought process to go through when it comes to improving lead quality?
I think it's both. I think definitely on the ad side, you want to avoid things that just bring in either tie kickers or people that don't have enough money, for example.
Yeah.
I love Facebook's built-in forms because it allows you to create those road humps that you can either push out the wrong people or you can segment in the right people. So for example, if I was running, let's say, a bathroom renovation campaign and I ran a lead form, I would be asking them, first of all, how much do you have to invest? And I'd give them the options, 1K, 5K, 10K, 50K, whatever it is. When are you looking to invest? Like, they're the two main triggers of whether the lead is quality or not. So it's like within the next 30 days, next 3 months, next 6 months. So when you collect that data, now you can segment your strategy off the back of that. So if someone says, I do have 20K to spend in the next 3 months, okay, that's going to be a slower lead nurture versus I've got 10K to spend. I need to do it in the next 30 days because we've got major problems. So when you're collecting that data, that enables you to either decide, this lead is low quality. They say I've got less than 5,000 and I'm looking at the next 6 months. Just send them some free guide. And you don't even need to follow up. Just be there, give them something and move on. The one that says, I've got 10, 20K, I've got 3 months or whatever it is, thinking about it, maybe do an outbound calling on them and, collect the telephone number and say, hey, we're going to send you some stuff. And, if you're okay, we'll book a call. You want to chase those people up. Calls, SMS, email, whatever it is. But at least the quality of the person coming in and you're directing your time and resources in the right way as well.
100%. And that kind of leads to my question, which is like funnels versus forms. Obviously, you mentioned their forms. Is your preference for like brick and mortar tends to be lead forms, or do you tend to do funnels, or does it just depend?
It depends on how well we can get the proposition across in the ad. So like if we need a landing page for it, then it's different. So this Scottish client, for example, they wanted to really showcase their work and their renovations and stuff like that. A bit harder to do it on an ad because yes, you can do videos and images and stuff, but they wanted a nice web experience. Even though most people coming in on mobile, they still wanted to show them like a reel of different stuff. So for them, they were really keen to do a landing page experience and they made the experience part of the selling process. And that's fine. But my preference is to use the lead form, especially for local, because a lot of the local inquiries, people are in the moment there and then. And like when you take them off the web, off the meta experience into the web experience, they can get distracted, they can get lost, they can't sometimes forget, not to say everyone's losing their mind, but there's so many distractions around. If they're on meta, keep them on meta, collect the information, create those small road humps. I don't just want your name and email address. I want to know what your situation is right now, and then collect that and then decide what to do from there.
And then obviously you can use, back end to kind of like follow up, get them to take more action and stuff like that. That makes complete sense. We've gone through CBO, ABO. Obviously, if your ABO preference is for testing, CBO preference is for kind of, I'm not going to say scaling, because like a lot of the time it's not scaling, it's more cruising.
CBO, just on that note, one of the problems with CBO is it works, but you need everything to work in harmony. So for CBO to work properly, you need to know your audiences, your ads, your offers, your funnels. When everything is dialed in, then CBO will give you stability. But CBO, like setting your budgets at the campaign campaign level only really works if you've got multiple ad sets. So if you've got one campaign, one ad set, one or a number of ads, you just set your budget at the ad set level. It's only really if you are using the more traditional style of one ad set per avatar, even if it's targeting the same audience, like by demographic, if it's split by avatar, and I often still do use that. Because by the way, even though I understand Andromeda, one of the things to watch out for is I'm yet to see this whole Andromeda setup work for more than a few months. There is still a fatigue or data or something going on problem within the algorithm. The same has happened with Advantage plus shopping campaigns on ecom. Same's happening with general Andromeda. I'm yet to see longevity in this setup. So my big kind of asterisk and caveat to this is it can work and it will work. Long term, I'm yet to see it work. So I would not put all the eggs in one basket and say I'm going to absolutely just focus on Andromeda. Like you, I still split my ad sets by avatar and hooks, creatives, and things like that. And I will continue to do that until I've seen the Andromeda thing work long term. Now, what I will tell you is I believe Andromeda is targeted more at the small marketer, small advertiser that doesn't really know what they're doing, that want the black box experience. They don't really want to understand targeting. They don't really want to understand structures and stuff like that. They just want to advertise. Google started doing something similar years ago. It's like, just give us your list of keywords, give us your ads, and we'll just make it all work for you. That's where Meta and Andromeda's leading tools. So I'm going to argue here that the likes of me and you will not make Andromeda work because we are too intelligent for that system. I'm not saying we're more intelligent than AI, but in terms of understanding our avatar and our offer and our funnel and optimizations to do, we are still ahead of Meta. Where Meta will benefit is, let's say, you are the renovation company and you just want to start some ads, then I think Andromeda's really lent towards you.
And so if we practically how that looks, so we've got, for example, a campaign for a roofer or for a bathroom fitter, whatever, osteo company, whatever it is. And we've started with our initial tests, our kind of segmented audiences based on hooks and pain points and avatars. You've run that for 2 weeks. You've got, 2 out of 4 performing pretty well. You've run more tests in the other 2 to try and pick it up, but they're just not connecting. So you've now got 2 kind of proven pain points, or let's say in this instance, avatars. Are you then saying, okay, let's now consolidate this together and let it rip? Or are you continuing allowing those to stay as they are in separated ad sets and then launching a separate retargeting campaign? How does that look practically?
So the first part of the question, yes, I would still keep them separately right now, especially for me and you, because we know what we're doing. We can identify data points and know when to pause ads, when to introduce and stuff like that. On the second part, the retargeting really depends on audience size. Like, especially for so many local ads, audience size just isn't big enough for retargeting. And then you end up with high CPMs and things like that. So I would just put those same ads into those same ad sets, but delay it. So I'm kind of using those ads. Once I have a few weeks of traction for top of funnel, then I'm adding those bottom funnels into those same ad sets.
Yeah.
Unless I feel like I'm getting don't even know a number, really for retargeting to work, you need tens of thousands of people in that audience. And for that to work for local, it kind of just doesn't happen.
But then we have a campaign which is housing our retargeting, which has video views, it has engaged audiences, it has traffic audiences. It's probably in that region. It's not huge, but that is pulling in about 30% of the leads, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
But you do need to let it run for a while. And so, for example, let's say you've got a client who maybe has a $50 per day budget, which is probably quite typical for a physical business. Rather than overcomplicating it and taking all of those kind of more us versus them, bottom of funnel, statics, whatever it is, rather than trying to segment them into their own ad set, you would just say, hey, I'm just going to pop these into my ad sets that I've already got earlier, kind of keep things as simple as I possibly can. And then almost that ad set has its own kind of ecosystem of cold, warm, and hot, and you kind of letting Facebook figure it out. Facebook, the Andromeda, at least the most useful part of this Andromeda is that Facebook should know if somebody is cold, warm, and hot, and they should feed the ads accordingly. So there's no real need to mess around too much with the audience segmentation.
Yeah, and one of the clues to look out for is frequency. So when you've got ads that have higher frequency than others, chances are the mid or lower funnel customers are seeing those ads more. So you can actually test that to see if the hypothesis is actually working. So you can kind of just rank your ads once you've got enough spend and impressions, and just look at the frequency as well.
There's also a new breakdown. I haven't got it in any of my ad accounts. There's a breakdown now which is showing you percentage of engaged versus cold. Have you seen this anywhere? I haven't
seen it yet, no.
No, I've got none of my ad accounts. That's got, obviously when that does roll out, that's going to be super interesting. So you're going to be able to see which ad ad and what percentage of its impressions is coming from previously engaged audiences or completely cold audiences. But
Absolutely.
if we're talking about physical local campaigns, maybe let's say up from $1,000 up to $5,000 per month, we're talking relatively simple split tests based on avatars and hooks and pain points, and condense those different funnel stages into those same ad sets. Keep things relatively simple, because people keep saying to me like, oh, this Andromeda thing, it's everything stopped working. I'm like, well, and I look at the ad account and I'm like, well, you've got one ad in here and that didn't work, and then you put another one in and then that one didn't work. And I'm like, I still think the same thing that was true 5 years ago is true now, which is if you do your research properly, you write ads well, you create high quality content, the person who wins is the one that creates the best and most frequent amount of high quality ads, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah.
Effectively, right? So no one needs to shit the pants and think that everything needs to change. Same old stuff. Understand your audience, create content accordingly, create enough of it, and you should be fine, right?
Yeah, and focus on attention, because that's the biggest deficit and the biggest barrier to someone actually doing something that you want them to do is attention. There's like TikTok, there's YouTube, Reels on Instagram. People have access to so much right now. And I think where ads try to be too clever, try to be too explanatory, sometimes you just lose someone. Often it's just like get your point across quickly and then start your narrative. So like thumb stopping content, which Facebook talked about for the longest time, still is true as it is now as it was 10 years ago.
I completely agree. I had one more question. Oh yeah, we'll finish now, but I have one more question before we finish. What's one ad style, creative style that maybe other people don't know about that's doing well for you right now when it comes to, it could be e-com, it could be lead gen, because they can all apply to each other, right? What's one piece of content or ad format that at the moment is just killing it for you?
So interestingly, not necessarily an ad format, but an ad style is, and we've got a client who's in the real estate, or I can't remember what it's called in the UK. I'm just so
estate agency.
Estate agency, yeah.
Yeah.
So like one of their ads, they advertise different properties. They also do different like funding options and things like that. But what's really working for them is high contrast creatives, and it's something that's worked for the longest time anyway on Meta, but I don't see it maybe enough. It's something where it just kind of pops, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook, and that within milliseconds grabs their eyes. Like that's one of the most important things to do. So whether it's a thumbnail for a video or whether it's just a static image, those images, so like for example, it might be a property image taken from a nice angle, but the clouds are maybe just highly contrasted. So they show a bit of the yellow of the sun behind it, and the sky is a lot more bluer than you'd expect. We've tested all those things, and they really do work. They really stop people in their tracks as well.
So we're talking about effectively just, could that be as simple as adding, for example, if you've got text-based ads, having really like brightly colored stuff that gets people talking in the comments, or is it more just stuff where you're like on the snooze feed and it's like just stands out, you know?
Just stands out initially, yeah. Because the thing is, people can't control their eyes. Like eye candy is a real thing. If someone sees something nice, the brain automatically goes to it before you can consciously even think about it. So we're kind of tapping into breaking down someone's defenses. For example, like if you run an ad and it's like, hey, if you're a homeowner, your defense is up because you know that this is an ad. Whereas if it's like a really nice creative and the ad is like, this is a stunning property, like you're kind of already drawn in, and then you're looking at the text and thinking, what is this thing? I want to read it, kind of thing.
Those hooks maybe catching people off guard slightly, and not, maybe I might even dare to say, not worrying so much about this obsession with calling out your ideal demographics. I think that people go overboard with that, trying to calling specifically out the person, the area, whatever it is, but maybe just going straight into the content and teaching something or explaining something in a way that's maybe a little bit obscure or like unnatural, and it might just work, right?
And just focusing on the feeling sometimes. Like one of the creatives my team ran a few years ago was they took a picture of me, turned it into like a cartoon. This was before AI could do all this stuff. So he kind of created this image, and it was like head on hand, a clock in the background, the windows were dark, it's like 10:11 p.m. or whatever it was, and it's like we wanted to convey a feeling, and I was wearing a bright yellow shirt, and there was like high contrast and stuff like that, and then the copy started with, it's 10 p.m. and you're still stressing about that client. I don't need to say, hey, as an agency owner, because like if you resonate with that, you're like, that's me, and you're going to read that.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. I used to run ads for Lottery Syndicate. This is back in the day, and we ran this ad. We bought a lottery ticket for like 2 weeks time or whenever it was. I burnt the lottery ticket in the video in my hands. I lit it on fire and burnt it, and that was the first 3 seconds of the video, and it had the future date on the ticket, right? So people in the comments were going, it might be winning. You don't know. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like obviously, I hope it
That's
didn't
it.
win. That would have been terrible. But that absolutely killed it. And so we
Yep.
did that again. We bought another one, burnt it, just swapped out the video, and that absolutely crushed it for like months and months and months and months and months.
And that's
Honestly.
it. It just needs that creative spark. And people will talk about AI copy, AI videos, AI images. AI doesn't really have that creative spark. I'm yet to see something that comes in and says, this is the ad you should run. It will get there at some point, but we still need to come up with the idea. So you could probably recreate that same video with AI, you know, using Sora or whatever it is. But having that creative idea, that has to come from somewhere. And that's
Yeah.
kind of where we still have an input.
An AI is not an AI UGC avatar is not going to be a roofer on a roof saying, "Hey, it's John here from so and so roofing." It's always going to perform better, isn't it? Like no matter
for
what
sure.
you try and do. So I think it's just I think the key thing I always say to people is like, if you want to try something, try it. That's the number one rule. There's not like a strategy necessarily. There's like, okay, this is like the best practices. But if you want to try something, try it, and don't over obsess about your testing strategy. You know how you're structuring something, especially when it comes to local brick and mortar style stuff. If you're targeting the right area, if your ads are good ads, it's probably going to work. It's going to work better than someone that's got crap ads, but they've got the perfect testing formula set up in their ad account, right? Well, anyway, we'll finish now because that was a really good call. Where can people find you if they want to find you? Like, do you want to plug a site? Obviously, we'll put it in the description, but where's the best place for people to go?
Yeah, bpmmethod.com. That's kind of where all my stuff hangs out. So BPM Method. And by the way, like BPM stands for brand driven performance marketing. And one thing I'll leave people with is I used to be a heavy performance marketer 15 years ago. All I cared about was metrics, like all the 3-letter acronyms and stuff like that. I hated brand marketers. I didn't understand all this nonsense with avatars and brand research and stuff like that until I started to run Facebook ads, and until I started to fail. Then I went back to, okay, what does a brand marketer look like? And that's when my ads started to work. So like this whole thing about avatars, and you know, you talk about the research you do online and what people are talking about. Some people use Amazon, some use Reddit, whatever it is. That is like 80% of your success will lie there. 20% is all the config, the ad sets, metrics, and things like that. And for me, that's where that methodology came out from.
Cool. Well, Deepesh, thanks so much.
Pleasure.
We'll end the call now. So I hope you enjoyed that interview that we did with Deepesh. I'm planning on doing a lot more of these and inviting some really exciting guests onto the channel. Just a few things from me before we end the video. The first thing is that very, very soon I'm going to be releasing my local Meta Ads course. Okay, and so all those who are on my email list are going to get early access to an exclusive discount to that course. Limited number of people being able to purchase at that price. This is my most extensive Meta Ads course, and it's the first time I've ever released it to people who aren't within my private community. So if you want to gain access to that, make sure that I'll leave a link down below where you can get access to my free Facebook guide. That's going to add you to my newsletter, and once you're on my newsletter, you'll get exclusive access to that course once it comes out. Otherwise, I really hope that you enjoyed that video. I've left links to all of Deepesh's links down below in the description, so you can go and check them out if you so want to. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.